Okay, so I've just picked a couple pairs here. I'm just going to break them down from the very top to the very bottom for you, just so you can kind of go see what I'm thinking when I do it. So I'd start on the daily. I would sometimes look on the weekly, see is there any very key zones that we could be looking at. But I would usually then end up defining them on the daily anyway. So like this one right here, I'd look at this and say, okay, this is a point from the previous 2 weeks I'll be looking at, but I know that I'm going to go onto the daily in a second. I'll just refine it on there. So now I'll be looking at the daily. And it was the problem with me doing this now is that yesterday was a bank holiday. So a lot of pairs just range to the side, which does make it more difficult to kind of break them down. But I'll still do it anyway. So this was yesterday's candle. What zones do we have on the daily? Well, we have this zone here, which is the previous weekly high. And if I drag that across, you can see it was also the week before that's high. So this is a strong point of rejection. You can see it there. And it also became, although it didn't kind of reject it last week, it did become the previous weekly high. So it is a zone of importance. And what we did yesterday was went all the way up, come all the way back down, leaving that long upper wick up there. And it was a weak bullish body. In fact, that might have even been bearish. Yeah, that's bearish. So it's a bearish body. So that is a rejection candle of this zone, indicating we are rejecting this zone on the daily. The daily candle tells us a lot about what is going to happen. And then knowing that, we can immediately start to think we haven't formed a bias yet because we do that on the 4 hour. But now we're immediately thinking, okay, buying here is risky because it could just end up rejecting the zone again. So now we go to 4 hour, and this is where we actually do implement our bias. So what have we done? So we've pushed up. I'll just draw this on as points. So we started here, we pushed up, we created that bullish leg up into there. And that's what we did yesterday. We pushed above, then we came all the way back down below the zone. But what did we do? We came all the way back down and we finished there. So this could just be a pullback for us to carry on to the upside like that. We don't know. So at this point in time, it is still bullish. Even though we could be rejecting this zone, it is still bullish. So I wouldn't be buying because of the daily and because it does look like we are rejecting the zone again, but we're not bearish. This situation happens quite a lot. We're not bearish because the 4 hour is not bearish. And you have to follow the rules of the strategy because they eliminate kind of confusion and make sure that you only trade when the actual setup and direction is concise and sure. So I would only be selling once this low here has broken, because that would mean that we would be going bearish, because it would be something like that. It would be a push down, a pullback, and then a push down, breaking below lows. So if I just get rid of them, 2, 3. So that means that on this pair, on AUD CAD, because of the daily, because of the 4 hour, I do think we could be rejecting that zone. But so that means that I wouldn't be buying until we get a daily close above the zone. I wouldn't be buying. But at this point in time, I wouldn't be selling until we break below that. So we need to create structure. It's all about creating structure. And then because it's AUD CAD, it's a US session pair. So I would just then go onto the 1 hour and look for US session zones. And it would just be the zones from the previous day like that, or the previous high up there. So if we did get the break below, we went bearish, I would just be looking for pullbacks into them zones. And then I just do this every single day. I just wait for the right thing to happen. You will get multiple opportunities a week. So if you're thinking, okay, well, I don't really want to wait. Well, you have to, because the opportunities will 100% come. The good opportunities when you're sure the daily and the 4 hour line up, there's a clear bias, and so on. And now I'm just going to break down Euro Swiss franc as well, a pair I've never even looked at, I don't think. So what I can immediately see is that we've had a strong push on the daily, very strong push to the upside, and we've had 2 rejection candles now. I'm going to look to the left, see if there is a possible zone which could have caused this, and I would immediately start to think, okay, we've got this zone in here which we rejected, we then rejected again in there, and now we've pushed up. We had a strong push to it after we ranged around for a while, strong push to it. We then had a very strong rejection on Friday, and yesterday was bearish. So looking at the actual anatomy of the candles, the previous 2 are bearish, indicating the momentum is with the downside after they have rejected a zone. And also we can start to think of the daily, we've got very clean push here. And when it's clean like this, there's no like loads of wicking, ranging. When it's a clean push, that means price will often move cleanly through it. And we look to see that get corrected. And does the 4 hour support this? Well, in my opinion, yes, it does. So what we did, we had the high up here. just like on the one I just did, we had the high up there, we then pushed down, but in this case it's a bit different because we pushed down to there and then we tried to push up from that point. We tried to have a push up, but all we could do was reach that, and then we pushed below this low right here. We pushed below that, you can see, push straight below. So that means that we created the low down there. And like I said, yesterday with the bank holidays, there was loads of ranging, meaning that this bit is not nice to look at. But to me, it is still bearish. So I would draw on that there. So it's pushing down, it's pushing down. So now the daily and the 4 hour, they agree that it is bearish. And then in terms of zones, because I know this in terms of zones, but what I'd also be saying on the 4 hour is that we have this here, which means, and it's kind of looking like we are rejecting this a little bit. But that could just be because there was little volume yesterday. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't be taking sells anymore. It just means that I'd be cautious of it and I'd be watching what would happen around there. But if there's enough volume, it should break below. And especially if we do break below, it should be a very clean move to the downside. And then in terms of zones, I'll just go to the lower time frames. And then depending on the session you're trading, so if it was London, you just draw on the low down there. I'm just going to go on the 15. It's actually the same zone for London and US. So for London, I'd just be looking at that. It's looking like it's also going to be Asia low. I'd just be looking for a break and retest of that. Or in US, I'd just be looking for a break and retest of that to the downside. So hope that can kind of clear a few things up of how I actually do look at the markets each day.